What do you think would cause the non-Christian agnostic Joe Rogan to say,
we need Jesus? Like, if he came back now, it'd be great.
A lot of people think that might be coming.
Well, it might be.
Rogan says that we need Jesus to come back, but does he really mean that? Well, yes and no. And to understand why I say this, you first need to understand the reasons that Joe gave for why he wants Jesus to come back. As non-religious secular people themselves, you wouldn't expect both Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers to agree that one of the things that they fear most for our world is not only the fact that technology and AI are developing so quickly, but the fact that this is happening in a world without God that's becoming more non-religious and more secular.
Unfortunately, the problem with living in a secular society and living in a society that has a lot of people that are atheists, that have no belief system at all, is you find a belief system. And that's a lot of these people that call themselves atheists, or they've subscribed to the religion of woke. You know, their God is equity and inclusiveness. Their God is this ideology that they think that you have to subscribe to. And that's why it's spooky.
So Rogan states that without religion, people will be led to something that's far scarier and far more dangerous, and the world will only get worse. But Joe wants a better world for all of us to live in, and as someone who used to be completely anti-religious not too long ago,
the whole thing's so stupid. Just stop and think how stupid that is. You understand, mother, because the New Testament is utter horse.
Joe now sees the problem with his old beliefs and why they lead to a worse world and not a better one. And this is why he seems to conclude that
as time rolls on, people are going to understand the need to have some sort of divine structure to things, some sort of belief in the sanctity of love and of truth. And a lot of that comes from religion. A lot of people's moral compass and the guidelines that they've used to follow to live a just and righteous life has come from religion.
And this seems to bring Joe fear because we're becoming more and more secular, and Joe doesn't believe that secular people can create their own moral compass.
And unfortunately, a lot of very intelligent people, they dismiss all of the positive aspects of religion because they think that the stories are mere superstitious fairy tales, that, you know, they have no place in this modern world, and, you know, we're inherently good and your ethics are based on your own moral compass and we all have one. And that's not necessarily true.
So at this point you might be thinking, okay, I see his point, but can things really get that bad? I mean, what exactly is Joe so worried about that will happen to our world without religion? Well, what he says next paints a pretty scary picture of a world without God that Joe thinks we're all headed towards. Joe thinks that we've already seen what happens when secular people create their own morality, and it's something that's so scary that it prompted a secular agnostic like Joe Rogan to hope that Jesus is real and that he'll be coming back soon.
That's not necessarily true, because you see the way people behave in war. They don't have any moral compass. They're just fucking murderers and killers. And we've asked people in service of our country to go to these places and behave like murderers and killers and then reintegrate into society, right back into society, and be a good person again. And they don't know how to do it, and they go crazy. And there's a lot of them who come back and they're down is up and up is down. They don't know what the
We don't help them out.
We don't help them out. And the suicide rate, suicide is I think, is it the number one killer of veterans?
Pretty sure, yeah. Yeah, but
yeah, it's a fucked up world we live in. We need Jesus. I think, for real. Like, if he came back now, it'd be great. Like, Jesus, if you're thinking about coming back
right now,
now's a good time.
Yeah, pretty soon, yeah.
Now's a good time. We're kind of
well, there's a lot of people that think that might be coming.
Well, it might be.
So Joe thinks that when Jesus comes back, it'd be good news because Jesus will fix the problems with the world, he'll stop the world from getting worse, and he'll make the world a better place for all of us to live in. And Joe's right about that. The good news for Joe, though, is that according to Peter, Jesus is slow in his return because he wants to give those like Joe more time to repent, so that way Joe can join God in the new world that Joe wants to live in. And by the way, the word repent in Greek just means to change your mind. So as Paul says, God has been kind to you and he's been very patient, waiting for you to change and turn to him. So Joe should be grateful that Christ hasn't come yet, because that means that God has given him more time to choose to join him in the new heavens and the new earth. And this leads to the other reason why Joe should be happy that Jesus hasn't restored the world yet. Before Jesus restores the world, he's going to judge us for everything that we've ever said, thought, and done. But the price to pay to get into heaven is is perfection. So unless you're perfect, this of course is bad news. But there's one more good piece of news for all of us, and that includes Joe and those like him. God is not just perfect in justice, but he's also perfect in mercy. And in his love and mercy, he took on human flesh, came into our world, and lived the perfect life that we couldn't live. And although he was perfect and he didn't do anything wrong, he chose to take on the punishment for the things that we chose to do wrong. So that way, when we stand before God on Judgment Day, our salvation can be judged based off of the perfect life that he lived rather than the imperfect life that we lived. And the best part about all of this is that he offers us his perfect life in our place as a free and undeserved gift. All we have to do is accept it. So for Joe and those who haven't received Jesus' payment for their sins, God has been patient with you so that way you can join him in the perfect and eternal world that Joe, and I really think all of us, want to live in. So if you haven't already, receive the free gift of salvation today. And if you already have, then pray for Joe because he's really been coming a long way. And if you're skeptical of just how much God has been pulling on Joe lately, go ahead and check out this video where I explain what made Joe a lifelong atheist and what caused him to recently start to change his mind about Christianity. So click here, and the next time that you find yourself wanting to live in the new heavens and the new earth based on your own righteousness, what are you gonna say? What do you mean?